Every single second, people around the world drink about 22,000 servings of a Coca-Cola product. We think of happiness, friendship, and a cold drink on a hot day. It's the brand that taught the world to sing, the one we share with friends, the one that tells us to taste the feeling. It is, without question, one of the most successful and recognizable brands on the planet. It's often said its red and white logo is more universally known than the Christian cross. But what if I told you that the world's favorite drink was born from a wounded Civil War veteran's battle with morphine addiction? Or that its path to global domination is littered with stories of Nazi collaboration, accusations of union-busting death squads, and environmental devastation? This is the story of what Coca-Cola doesn't want you to know. This is the disturbing history of Coca-Cola. Our story starts on a battlefield, not in a boardroom. John Pemberton was a Confederate veteran of the American Civil War. After being wounded, he developed a morphine addiction and, as a pharmacist, was desperate to find a cure. In the late 19th century, so-called patent medicines were a huge business, promising to fix everything from headaches to impotence, and Pemberton wanted his piece of the pie. He was inspired by a popular drink from Europe called Vin Mariani, a wine infused with coca leaf extract. And yes, that's the coca leaf, the source of cocaine. Pemberton created his own version, calling it Pemberton's French Wine Coca, and sold it as a nerve tonic. There was just one little problem. Shortly after he started selling it, his home county passed prohibition laws. But Pemberton didn't miss a beat. He simply reformulated his recipe, swapping the wine for a sugary syrup and adding caffeine-rich cola nuts. On May 8, 1886, at Jacob's Pharmacy in Atlanta, the very first glass of Coca-Cola was sold. It was billed as a healthy, stimulating drink that was both delicious and refreshing. And it was definitely stimulating. Each glass contained a small but noticeable amount of cocaine from the coca leaf extract. Now, at the time, this wasn't as scandalous as it sounds. Cocaine was legal and a common ingredient in medicines, considered safe in small doses. It gave a little boost of energy and euphoria, which was great for business. But as the 20th century began, public opinion started to change. A fear of cocaine began to spread, and it was deeply tied up with racial prejudice. Newspapers ran sensationalist stories claiming that cocaine use among black workers in the South was causing a crime wave against white people. This moral panic put intense pressure on Coca-Cola. So, around 1903, the company quietly began the process of removing cocaine from its formula, swapping the high with even more sugar and caffeine. While the company still uses spent coca leaves for flavor today, all the psychoactive elements are removed by a specialized chemical company, the only one in the United States legally authorized to import coca leaves for this purpose. The secret ingredient was gone, but the name and the controversy stuck around. After Pemberton died, the rights to his formula were bought by a man named Asa Griggs Candler, a businessman who didn't see a medicine but a global empire. Candler was a marketing genius. He knew he wasn't just selling a drink. He was selling an idea. But that idea wasn't meant for everyone. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Coca-Cola's marketing was aimed exclusively at white middle-class consumers. Influenced by the era's pervasive racism, the company deliberately ignored black customers. This wasn't just a simple oversight, it was a strategy. As the company's products spread, they were sold in a segregated world of separate drugstore fountains and retail spaces, reinforcing the color line. There were even reports of two-sided vending machines with separate slots for white and colored customers. The happy, wholesome image of Coca-Cola was built on a foundation of racial exclusion from its earliest days. And this discriminatory culture wasn't just a thing of the past. It would stay rooted in the company's corporate structure for another century, leading to one of the biggest legal fights in American corporate history. As the 20th century rolled on, so did Coca-Cola's ambition. The company's next huge leap forward came thanks to World War II. Robert Woodruff, the company's president, declared that any man in uniform should be able to get a bottle of Coke for 5 cents wherever he was. This wasn't just patriotism. It was a brilliant business move. The U.S. government considered Coke so important for morale that it granted the company exemptions from sugar rationing and helped it build bottling plants to follow American soldiers around the world. Coca-Cola effectively used the war to build a worldwide distribution network, much of it at the government's expense. But while Coke was wrapping itself in the American flag, its German subsidiary was operating under a very different one. When the U.S. entered the war, a trade embargo cut off Coca-Cola Deutschland from the secret syrup it needed. The head of the German branch, a man named Max Keith, had a choice: shut down or get creative. He got creative. Using only ingredients he could find in Nazi Germany's scraps like whey, a cheese byproduct, and apple pumice, sweetened with beet sugar, Keith created a new drink. To name it, he told his team to use their imagination, or fantasy in German. A salesman yelled, Fanta, and the name stuck. Fanta was a massive hit in Nazi Germany, selling 3 million cases in 1943 alone. It was enjoyed by the public and high-ranking Nazi officials alike, ensuring that Coca-Cola's German operations not only survived, but thrived during the war. When the war ended, the parent company in Atlanta just re-established control over its German plants, reabsorbing the profitable operation and the Fanta brand along with it. The end of the war cemented Coca-Cola's status as a global superpower. But as its power grew, so did its problems. The pristine image the company spent billions to create started to crack. First, that history of racial exclusion came back to bite them. In 1999, a group of African American employees filed a landmark class action lawsuit against Coca-Cola. They alleged systemic racial discrimination, claiming the company had a glass ceiling that prevented them from being promoted and paid fairly. The lawsuit presented damning allegations of major pay disparities between black and white employees. In 2000, Coca-Cola agreed to what was, at the time, the largest settlement in a corporate racial discrimination case in U.S. history, paying out $192.5 million and agreeing to major changes in its internal policies. While the company admitted no wrongdoing, the settlement was a public relations nightmare and felt like a validation for the thousands of employees who felt they were held back by the color of their skin. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, an even darker story was unfolding. In Colombia, Coca-Cola bottling plants became the center of a brutal anti-union campaign. Since the late 1980s, union leaders at these plants have faced intimidation, torture, kidnapping, and murder. A lawsuit filed in 2001 by the union, Sinal alleged that Coca-Cola's local bottling partners hired or worked with right-wing paramilitary death squads to silence union leaders. One of the most chilling cases is that of Isidro Gil, a union leader who was shot and killed at his bottling plant in 1996, just as the union was about to enter negotiations. Activist campaigns have documented the murders of at least 8 union leaders connected to Coca-Cola bottlers. The company has always denied any direct involvement, arguing the violence is a tragic part of Colombia's long civil conflict. But lawsuits accused plant managers of collaborating with paramilitaries, and global boycotts under the banner Stop Killer Coke were launched by activists who felt the company was undoing enough to protect its workers. At the same time, another crisis was brewing in India. As Coca-Cola expanded its operations there, communities began reporting a terrifying problem. Their wells were running dry. In places like Pachamama, Kerala, locals accused Coca-Cola's massive bottling plants of draining the local groundwater, depleting the aquifer that thousands relied on. To make matters worse, the company was accused of polluting the land by distributing toxic sludge from its plants as free fertilizer, which was later found by some tests to contain high levels of lead and cadmium. Coca-Cola denied the claims, blaming water shortages on drought and stating its operations had a minimal impact. But the damage was done. The company that built its brand on refreshment was now seen by many as a force that left the earth parched and poisoned. From a cocaine-laced patent medicine to a global symbol of capitalism, the journey of Coca-Cola is the story of the modern world itself. It's a story of incredible marketing savvy, a company that sold not just a product, but a feeling and emotion. So powerful that when they tried to change the formula with New Coke in 1985, people revolted as if they'd lost a dear friend. But beneath that happy, bubbly surface lies a more troubling truth. A history of profiting from addiction, of entrenching racial inequality, of being accused of turning a blind eye to violence, and of draining precious natural resources. It's a legacy that doesn't quite match the perfect world we see in the commercials. Coca-Cola's empire was built on a secret formula, but its biggest secret might just be the story of how it was truly built.